Welcome to Connected Faith, the Asia Pacific Media Podcast. We're so glad that you have joined us. This is number 3 of an ongoing series of talks with the purpose of hopefully empowering our believers and churches to be able to use media in more creative ways. There's so much potential there. Somebody wrote this, I wish I had. A few years ago, I read it for the first time. We are in the middle of the greatest communication revolution since Gutenberg's press in the late 1400s when they printed the Bible. And the Bible became accessible to people at the grassroots. That's the day we are at. The democratization of media gives us all kinds of possibilities. With that, I'm Bill Snider, founder and director of Asia Pacific Media, and joining me is
Dr. Layne McDonald, or just Layne.
Just Layne and just Bill. Thank you for being a part of this. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about options and directions that the church and individual believers can take to make the message more accessible to the gospel. Layne, from your experience, what is the typical local church doing today as it relates to the use of digital media?
I mean, the basic litmus test on whether you're in the 21st century is if you're on social media to begin with, right? Most churches set up a Facebook page, and that's basically it, or a YouTube page, and they stream their service if they've got that, if they're that lucky. A lot of technically savvy churches go much further into it. So I don't know if you want me to go into what all they can do or what the basic church is doing right now.
I think you've described it well. The average church wants to be there with presence, and so they have a Facebook page, or maybe they're using Instagram, and then they stream their service. A few churches take excerpts of the service and put it into something else, and a few churches have a YouTube channel. But the great majority are sort of at the point of, we're not really satisfied with what's happening. What else can we do? And I think that's where we're going to go for the next few minutes as we talk about digital media in the local church. So, Layne, why don't you start us off with what are some other things that a local church can be doing that are not incredibly intensive, but it's just something that naturally flows out of a normal church? What would you suggest?
So I'd say most churches already do good communication skills in person, but when it gets to social media, for some reason, anything digital, we tend to unrelate personable or authentic or human to it, right? We've got the most lonely people and isolated people on social media. And why is that? Because there's a huge disconnect on what social media and what media is truly about. It's about that first engagement to continue the process of a relationship, right? It's not the end point. It's not the beginning point and the end point. It's the beginning point. So a lot of churches have email chains going, an email list, possibly a text-based system for all the isolated groups, like the islands in a church, like a choir, a worship team, a media team, a youth group, that kind of thing. But when it comes to someone sitting in or visiting the church or an ongoing relationship with a member, you got to talk about communication styles. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong when they think an email chain is going to suffice, or a text is going to be okay, or a streaming worship is going to be fine, where there's multiple different communication styles and different ways of learning. For instance, there's tactile learning, there's visual learning, there's auditorial learning. It's the exact same thing with communication. Some people will see it. Some people have to actually hear what they're saying and get it, and some people have to physically be present to get it. But I think all three of those are very humanistic, in-person kind of attributes. So when we talk about these type of things, and we're going to talk about a lot of them, right? We're going to talk about social media and all the tools that are at our disposal. But if we totally miss that whole human connection and that it's just a tool, it's not the why. It is a tool to help continue that communication and that resonating relationship with that person. I think you'll see a lot of churches utilizing media in a totally different way. I think I answered your question, but if you're talking about, go ahead.
The simply put, we're going from views to engagement. Views only take you so far. I can watch a sermon or I can watch a worship service and I'm not a participant, I'm an observer. But if I am engaged with people in some setting, even in the digital world, the engagement takes me to a new level of at least the beginning of feeling like I'm connecting with someone else. And then the goal from that is from a digital connection to an in person connection. There's a process going on here, but oftentimes we leave it at the point of just providing with the content without providing people with the opportunity to connect at a little bit deeper level. And I think those are some of the things we're going to talk about in the next few minutes are taking it from I'm just an observer to something or I watch sometimes, but how do I get people more deeply involved with something that's going to benefit them? So I suppose the first thing we could talk about is the idea of interactive content, the idea of having a Bible study online or a prayer group online. We have done media in Asia for probably 35 years now. And I have seen some of the most creative local churches come up with ideas. And it happened during COVID when they were unable to get outside of their home, when the lockdowns were not like in America, they were really lockdowns. You were allowed to leave home once a week to go and get food. So, how do you keep connectivity? How does a church grow in that setting? And so, churches began to do online Bible studies where there would be a moderator or somebody that was teaching, and then a small group. It may be 6, it may be 15, but those people would meet every week for an hour or an hour and a half. In large cities in Asia, that has continued to be because to go from point A to point B may take you an hour to get there. And that's one way, 2 hours of your evening. You're not going to be able to do that all the time. But if you have it online, then there's participation through Zoom or through other things. You have the opportunity of seeing each other, talking with each other. Is it as good as face to face? No, it's not as good, but it is better than just sending a text message or just watching a video online. There is opportunity for connection and interaction. That's one thing that I think can be done. Another thing that is often used in Asia, and churches have been using that in many places, is the WhatsApp program. WhatsApp allows you this type of connectivity where you can get small groups together. And the benefit of it is churches are helping people to be connected at a different level. And from that, their involvement and participation and their own personal life grows in a positive way.
Yeah, if anybody's asking what is WhatsApp, it's again a Facebook, right? So you look at the largest companies in the world for searching and engagement, it's Google. For video, it's YouTube. Those two are owned by Google. It's Google. Well, Facebook is still the prevalent largest social media platform in the world by large. And of course, they own Instagram and WhatsApp. So I find it interesting that even non-faith entities understand the different nuances of communication, right? Where Facebook's more of posting a one-sided thing and then you wait. Instagram is more visual photo kind of thing, telling a story visually. And then WhatsApp is it's more interactive, right? So they even are bridging out to different kind of things. But yeah, I think you're hitting it right on the head when we talk about it. I mean, there's definitely a need for consuming media. I mean, obviously the generations 18 to 34, I think is 60% would rather do an interactive thing. And I think you're talking about this in general is just the time it takes to travel to somewhere. Maybe you have money for gas, maybe you don't, maybe you have to take a taxi. Who knows? I mean, we really live in a vacuum in America, right? Where we just think everybody's got a car, everybody can get around, go, drive 30 minutes to church. Some people have elements, some people just don't have the means.
Well,
And so,
I'm thinking if you've got a family situation where the mother or father has to stay home, they can't go to a place because they don't have childcare. So in their own home at 7:30 in the evening or 8:30 in the evening after the kids are asleep or the homework is being done, you have the potential of being able to involve them where they can't leave their space at that point, but they want community in a different way. And you're providing that. And then the topics are interesting. They relate to the people where they're at. You're giving them handles as to what the Word of God means to you tomorrow morning, how it will help you in the interactions and the problems of your life tomorrow. WhatsApp is one way. I've got family members who absolutely believe in podcasts. And there is another avenue of communication. I have a son who has a job where he often works on Sunday morning. And so maybe 2 out of 4 Sundays he's going to be in church, but the other Sundays he can't be there because he's on the job. So what does he do during the week? He finds his favorite communicator and listens to podcasts as he's driving his kids to school or as he's home. He's got 30 minutes and the podcast is in the background and he's getting spiritual food through that podcast. So there's another avenue of building a line of communication from the church, and the content is there, into people's lives in a way that's accessible when they want it. Hey, that's the world today. It's when I want it. It's not when you've got it. It's when I want it, when I can grab it. If it's there available anytime, then there's a good chance I'm going to find time to grab it, especially if it speaks to me. So we've talked about interactive content. We've talked about the potential of podcasting. What other things would you suggest, Layne?
and I would go back to those and keep the interactive and the human element in them, right? Podcasting, when it started, you'd record something and then off it went, right? And YouTube's the same way. Sermons are the same way. The old way of doing things. What we're seeing with the younger generation is they want a talk back system, right? Again, WhatsApp being the main idea here is that they can actually reach out to you and ask a question, or they can privately message you, DM you, direct message you a question or a need, or start a conversation with you. There's so many elements there. I mean, you've got everything from, theaters to television to radio to social media to posting ads, geotagging people in their general location with their zip code, podcasts, music, sermons, short stories, testimonials. I mean, you name it. All those things are pretty much being done story-wise in a church in the 4 walls. We call it four-walling, right? If you're not there, you missed it. So the beauty of this digital media and all this is that you can record the stuff and get it out to many more people. But why? Right? I love, you and I were talking, and you have this saying, so what does it mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How many sermons are recorded on a Sunday? How many ministers are delivering a message that's four-walled? And how many of those are not four-walled that are streamed that are going to get watched? A lot of the question is, so what does that mean to me? So how can I use it? What's the why here for me personally? And I think that key ingredient is, if that church is in your local area, you can reach out and physically have a conversation with them. That's a huge, powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how big your media is, doesn't matter what tools you're using. When you can break those boundaries and lower the guard, the most powerful tool that we have is the local church in a local community reaching out to those local people. We're in the Bible Belt right now. I mean, I can probably look around outside and spot about 4 other churches outside the door of our church, right? So there's plenty of churches in a neighborhood to where, a lot of the ailments, addiction, foster care, elderly care, transportation, these type of physical needs, that shouldn't be an issue. The gap here is personally reaching out and communicating and helping those in your community. And how do they even know you exist, right? You're talking to me about all the stuff that people could do and all that, and I was writing some down right here. I mean, you can email your podcast out. Hey, we got a podcast. You can text it out. You can physically mail stuff out like a newsletter and all that. You can do social ads to get a boost, geotagging your location, like your exact neighborhood. Like if someone's looking for this, divorce, addiction, counseling, adoption, foster care, whatever, marriage, young couple, young adult, teen, whatever, you can just lay that right over and just smother your whole neighborhood with ads, right? I mean, it's so easy to do if you know how to do it.
And in every case, Layne, we are amplifying the message, and that's what social or digital media allows us to do. From where we are amplifying the message. If we're not amplifying the message, then the church is missing a wonderful opportunity to go beyond. You talked about four-walling it, beyond the 4 walls. And in the vast majority of things, everything we've talked about so far this morning or today, it doesn't cost anything. Now, it costs time. It costs creativity. It may cost getting a good camera or something like that. But the actual distribution cost is pretty much zero to be able to speak into lives of people in your congregation and their friends that take it beyond the 4 walls. So a great potential. We're breaking, as you say, breaking barriers.
And I think when you can do that, that's the beginning, right? That email, that post, that that interaction's the beginning. You have to ask the people what they need, right? If you're doing a sermon or a series where there is just no response, either they don't know it exists, there isn't a personal connection, the why isn't resounding enough, or you just haven't asked the right question, right? Everybody needs Jesus, right? A non-Christian needs to know why. And once they realize that there is a safe, non-judgmental, helping hand, a group of people that can raise you up in a time of need, that can check on you during a storm, they can visit you if you're lonely, they can bring food to you if you're sick. Once you realize that an authentic group of Christians trying to reach out to you and connect with you, I think, what you said, why would someone drive over to a church on Sunday morning or Wednesday night or just a random night on a week, or want to connect on social media if they don't have the means for traveling or it's just too much? Why would they go to that instead of just clicking on Netflix and watching a movie, right? There has to be a human, life-changing, life-altering, life-giving. And I think that is where the disconnect comes from that's where the human element comes in with social. If you can use your church, use your pastoral prowess and lay down the overly polished sermon to tell a personal story about why you're like the way you are, or how you got to know Christ, or what God has done in your life. That is really powerful stuff. And that, once you realize that could be a video, a podcast, a Facebook post, a commercial, a testimonial on a live event. I mean, you can use that one story in so many different ways. And again, those ways aren't just so you can get it out to multiple different platforms. Those ways are so that the different types of communication styles and engagement styles will resonate. Some people don't listen to podcasts. Tons of people do. Some people watch video. Some people would rather do podcasts. You're meeting them where they are, right? You're throwing the fishing line where the fish are at.
And there's no one right answer. It's multiple ways of approaching it. I wish this was my statement, but it's certainly not original. Somebody's speaking to the fact that the church may be online 1 hour. The question then is, what are you doing with the 167 hours after the 1 hour is over? And I think in this time together, we're suggesting options that are available, from interactive options to consistency of communication online from the church that is speaking to the needs of people, not a promotion of the next event. That's for the congregation. But if we want to go beyond the congregation, then we need to speak into the lives of people and the things that they're struggling with. I got something a couple of days ago. I'm subscribed to a communication from the American Bible Society. They do something very unique every year. They do a research theme on the state of the Bible, and this is for America, each year. The most recent thing that they put out was the State of the Bible 2024 as it relates to Gen Z. And one of the most interesting bottom line facts was this: Gen Z has more anxiety, more loneliness, more depression than any other generation. You want to go to millennials, you want to go to boomers, you want to go to busters, all of those other, what we call different generations. Gen Z is at the top when it comes to those issues of anxiety, depression, loneliness, etc., all in that realm. But the interesting statistic that they came up from their research is that Gen Z who engage with the Bible regularly, the amount of anxiety, depression, loneliness is cut in half, so that it is actually lower percentage-wise than millennials, than everybody but boomers. So the engagement with the Bible will make a difference in the daily life and the feelings and emotions of an entire generation. And this is statistically accurate, deep research that's been done. So it says to me, as the local church, what are we doing that is helping people to engage in the Bible? So then we talk about the subject of Bible apps. The Bible app I use personally more than any other is YouVersion, because there's so many different studies that are available. I can go through the entire Bible. I can do a 5-day study on depression. I can do a 1-month study on the Gospels. Many, many options, plus a visual devotional every day that's there. That's just one of many, but YouVersion, I think, is approaching hundreds of millions of people that use YouVersion. What an amazing blessing to be able to encourage your congregation or the people around you. Hey, download the app. Let it be something that encourages you for Bible engagement. So that's another way that I think the church can be involved in empowering their congregation. Any other thoughts? We've got just a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, it's like YouVersion is, think of like book clubs. People read books. Well, you could have a Bible class at your house, at your church, wherever, at a coffee shop. YouVersion is great for, hey, let's read through this this week. Get back together. Let's talk about what we read, and put your notes in. But this is the beauty of that. You also got prayer apps like PrayerMate and all sorts of apps for prayer, right? And a higher level, I think. It's a higher purpose than Facebook, right? You're connecting at a soul need that we all have. There's a heart. What does it say? There's a God-shaped hole in everybody's heart, and these apps can help. But it's also engaging people and telling them, hey, let's do this in a fun way, right? And you got people clicking on an app and praying for people. And then you can click on it and say, hey, I just prayed for you. I want to check up with you. How are you doing? That's incredible. You also have got, like you said, your daily devotion and YouVersion and all that kind of stuff. But, there's a lot of creatives out there. I mean, there's so many apps out there that you can create art and you can share God's beauty within your talent. There's tons of those type of apps. But again, at the end of the day, it's all about connecting to the humanity in all of us and that need to connect at a higher level than just, likes and follows and all that kind of stuff.
In years of training and working with people in churches in Asia and to some degree in America, I'm taking a new look at a verse in the Bible, and it says this: pray the Lord of the harvest that he will call forth laborers into his harvest field. And I think the prayer can also be focused. Pray that the Lord of the harvest will raise up digital laborers for the digital harvest field. The creatives that are in every congregation who have the ability to tell stories, who have the vision to be able to work in this space. We need Christian influence in this space, not to talk about the secular subjects of the day or to mouth our opinions about issues, but to just be purveyors of hope, purveyors of gospel truth that is going to outlive the angers of the moment, the frustrations of the day. It's going to take people beyond that. Praying the Lord of the harvest that there would be these laborers raised up in every one of our churches who can work us alongside leaders and be able to creatively bring content to the congregation and beyond the four walls. I think that's a good prayer to pray. Not just for people to enter ministry or to go overseas as missionaries, but what about right where we're at? Lord, raise up digital laborers for this harvest field that is there. I appreciate you joining us for this time. The podcast is called Connected Faith. It's the Asia Pacific Media Podcast. If you'd like to look at our website, it's apmedia.org. As we've said before, if you have questions or topics that you'd like for us to talk about, maybe we've said something that you'd like to push back and say, well, talk about this a little more. I'm not sure I agree. That's terrific. We'd love to have that. This should be a conversation, and that's what we're hoping it will be developed. And as I've said before, in future weeks, we're going to have guests that will talk about specific topics. But I hope we're laying a foundation for a growing conversation that will put more and more spiritual, personal content into the digital world that will help people grow closer to God, understand God, relate to others who are believers, and build the church of Jesus Christ. So thank you for joining us. Any final thought, Layne?
No, if you have any ideas on how you've done it, if something's working that we haven't even mentioned, please put it in the comments. Please send us some communication. We'd love to talk to you on an ongoing basis for sure, because together we can, more minds the better.
And at the bottom of the screen, there's going to be some contact information so that you can follow up that way. But thank you for joining us on Connected Faith, and we'll see you next time.